right, welcome back. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYV Television Channel 33, also on radio. That's 101.7 FM. Don't forget to drop your comments and questions on the issues being discussed this morning on our Facebook page. That's at Africa Young Voices Media Empire Facebook page.
Right, now the National Electoral Commission will be conducting parliamentary and local council by-elections in Kailahun District this Saturday. Now the vacancies occurred following the death of the previous office holders. During campaigns, violence broke out that led to the death of a youth in Penguia Chiefdom in the district. John Aliu of the APC, Zainab Kama Brahma of the SLPP, and independent candidate Ibrahim Sylvester Jushu Engala will contest the hotly contested constituency 010 by-election. And to discuss plans ahead of Saturday, we are joined by Marcella Samba, who is here for National Elections Watch. Good morning and welcome to the show, Marcella.
Good morning, Samuel, and thanks for having me.
And we are meant to have the Director of Communications from the National Electoral Commission, Philip Kabo, but unfortunately he just called in sick, so he would not be able to make it, according to our producer. And online we shall be having the Local Unit Commander for Kailahun District, who is in the middle of all of this saga in Kailahun, so have his own side of the story.
All right.
Marcella, let's start off with the fracas that took place a few days ago that led to the death of a youth. First off, what does that where does that position Sierra Leone's democracy, especially when violence continues to blur our electoral processes?
I mean, absolutely. Elections and violence do not go together, because whenever there's violence in elections, nobody wins. There's no winner. Everybody is a loser. Just as the community in Kailahun has lost a young person, so violence and intimidation has no place in electoral processes. One of the things that we need to do probably, I mean, of course, more education as we are having. The very reasons why elections are part of democratic processes is to get people to understand that you can compete through the ballot box. And competing through the ballot box doesn't mean that we should fight. You fight with your ballots and not with sticks, stones, knives, and bullets. But unfortunately, people are yet to understand this, because we are breeding a society where people do not encourage dissent. People want to be part of democracy, but they do not want to tolerate choices. And that is what democracy is. People have, I mean, dissenting views. And that is the reason for the violence in constituency 10, you know, where the election should take place. In reality, we now know that the violent culture has to be nipped in the bud. Before, people think that it was because of inter-party, you know, tensions, but this is not the case in constituency 10. In constituency 10, this independent candidate was originally an SLPP member, but they had dissenting views. They said, no, we don't support the candidates who the party has actually put forward. So this individual went as independent candidates. And in the process, there's tension between the SLPP group and the group of the independent candidates. So basically, it's like an integral part. Though it's come out as an independent candidate, it's actually the same group now split into two, and then there is tension between them.
That begs the question. I mean, the culture of political tensions or violence in Sierra Leone has always been inter-party. But now we're seeing this new phenomenon. Where do we put discipline within intra-party discipline to ensure that it does not have to be APC and SLPP. But even within the SLPP, even within the APC, there should be a culture of tolerance, that if I disagree with you, I have to find another platform to come up with my political views.
I mean, that's a perfect question, and that's the bridge that we need to cross at this moment. So one of the things, two things very quickly. There is an urgent need for the Political Party Registration Commission to reform its laws, that would strengthen its regulatory functions, so that in the process, that reformed legislation would take into account inter and intra-party democracy. The internal democratic process of political parties is what is causing the problem. Because, in the political parties, power has been devolved also. They are a constituency executive. But unfortunately, the constituency executive do not have the free will. They do not have the space for the constituents within that constituency, that is within the political party, to go through their democratic processes and present their candidates. Now, there are allegations the candidates are imposed from the center. And so, if the internal party democracy is flawed, ultimately, the party politics at the national level will also be flawed, because it's from the level that we have a system that would influence what we have at the national level. So the internal processes needs to be looked at very carefully, and that needs the legislation in that respect, because the PPRC law is limited to take on, their mandates. It's limited to take on some of the new, phenomenon that we are seeing at the moment. And probably the second point is civic education.
I was just about to get to that, because, the angle at which you were speaking is more of how to deal with the issue, but how do we prevent such a thing from happening? What would be the role of civic education in all of this?
Yes, so definitely, one, the law has to be strengthened. Two, people need to be educated. And then, to answer to your question directly, there's urgent step to work towards independent institutions of the state. The supportive role the Sierra Leone police plays in electoral processes. It's not an election management body, but they are support institutions to elections. And for example, a case of the independent candidates in Kailahun, constituency 10, this candidate, there were allegations that this candidate was almost prevented from facing the nomination. This candidate was arrested for breaking COVID-19 rules. And those who were alleged to be part of the arrest team was personnel from the police, the DICOVAC people, and people from the ONS. These were alleged to be the people who actually effected the arrest. And irrespective of the fact that the NEC official prevailed that this man needs to be nominated, he was detained in the police station until the LUC intervened to say this man needs to leave this station to be nominated. So you see the circumstances of how independent institutions should be able to play their role, diverse of electoral politics, because they have no business in electoral politics. Enforcing their mandates should not interfere with electoral politics at whatever level. So the DICOVAC said that they were riding to a bike and they didn't have face masks. And in the process, this guy and his supporters were beaten and arrested. That is not the mandate of those institutions in place. So the independence of the police is also critical. And in the process also, during the campaign of the SLPP, then this boy was allegedly killed, the youth. Now, up to the time National Elections Watch releases its report, no arrest has been effected. But the supporters of the independent candidates has been arrested. And so you see this kind of approach to addressing, from public institutions to addressing issues. Now it's not between the two parties. Between the two parties, we always have the sort of headache to address those issues. But now it's even within a community. So that is why independent institutions should be able to stand the test of time, because they are the fortresses of democratic practices.
Now, Marcella, you know, every time there's an election, it is not the institutions that perpetuate the violence. It is individuals, whether supporters, you know, just individuals who make up these political parties. So what sort of education or conversation should we be having regarding this?
So the question is, what gives rise to the violence? And one of the critical issues is when institutions are perceived of impartiality. They are partial. Institutions are not independent. Institutions do not create a level playing field, and tension emerges. So first and foremost, if people have dissenting views, as I have said, I don't want to be part of any political party process. I want to go as an independent candidate. Leave the independent candidates to do whatever they want. That is their process. So when these institutions are seen as favoring an individual or creating roadblocks, you know, to, you know, the performance of other groups, then tension arises. So the point is addressing the question of what causes violence. And over the years, what we have observed, whenever political parties are in power, electoral processes are independent processes. The role of traditional leaders, the role of political leaders is for everyday governance. It's not for elections. So we see a tendency where influential people, whether in political parties, whether traditional authorities, whether elected representatives in those communities, they want their presence to lay beyond them. And that is what creates the tension. For example, in Constituency 10, the paramount chief has openly identified with the campaign processes. And you know the role of traditional leaders in the community. Once the traditional leader openly identifies with the political process, the other faction would see him as biased. And these are the reasons.
As you talk about state institutions and their responsibilities to the state, especially when it comes to discharging their duties, let's go to Kailahun. LUC Kamara, good morning and welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. I hope you're getting me this time.
Yes, we're getting you. Though we have a terrible line, but we'll patch along as we go. Just quickly, okay. LUC Kamara. First off, you are being accused of the one manning the election in the chiefdom where you do not have jurisdiction as a local unit commander. What took you to that particular part of the election where you assigned? Let's clear that.
Let me just correct that statement.
Go ahead.
I'm the local unit commander for the Daru division that is made up of 10 chiefdoms. And 2 of these chiefdoms, Sajabongri and Penguin, that's where this by-election is being conducted or held. So these 2 chiefdoms, where the election is going to be conducted tomorrow, they are directly under me. I'm in charge.
Are you still there with us?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're talking.
So let's go.
Like I had been saying, I'm not assigned to these 2 chiefdoms where the by-election is going on or the process is going on.
Okay. What were you? What
are under the Daru division?
What
where I am assigned as the local unit commander. I hope you get it clear.
Yes, very clear. What were you there to do? Were you there to supervise your guys, perhaps, who had who you've assigned to man that particular those 2 chiefdoms where the by-election is to be held Saturday coming? Were you there to supervise them, or were you there to just implement the security strategy that you think was necessary for the conduct of the entire process?
Both. I'm directly supervised And as we speak right now, I'm on my way to the campaign territory for the independent this morning.
What happened when the violence broke out? What was the response of Kailahun police? Because the allegation now is the boy who lost his life was beaten in front of security personnel.
I don't know which violence you are talking of. As far as I'm concerned, the campaign has been very peaceful. I mean, it is a common thing in election to have a few issues of misunderstanding, violence, and those issues were reported to the police, and these are subjects of investigations. Investigations are going. Talking of a little boy that was beaten in the presence of the police is strange to me. Can you be precise so that I can respond positively?
Are you aware that somebody was killed during the process of the fracas between or among supporters of the SLPP candidates and the independent candidates, LUC?
I'm sorry, it did not happen. This did not happen, to be precise, in the process of this campaign. Talking of somebody that was killed, this was an intelligence that came up to us, and we implemented the format, and that issue is a subject of investigation that is progressively going on. Yeah.
LUC, the allegations are that this man who lost his life was bitten and was stabbed right there where police officers were meant to be protecting and overseeing the process, the campaign process.
I'm sorry, I don't mind repeating the same thing. That did not happen. That did not happen.
So what you're saying is that there was no security presence in the area?
As I told you, that incident came to our knowledge as an intelligence. And we did the necessary by assigning personnel to protect the corpse until it was removed for autopsy. And as I told you, I don't want to comment further as far as this issue is concerned. It's a subject of investigation. I don't want to prejudice any aspect about it.
Right. With that being established, what was the security strategy like for the candidates who were campaigning, the different timelines that were given by NEC for these candidates to campaign? What was the strategy like?
The strategy is very straightforward. We simply implement our role to protect the campaign team. We have our vehicles, front and back, and a number of personnel at the middle. So we move peacefully. Yeah, that's the strategy actually.
All right. So it means every campaign activity that took place, the police was present. So if you're now saying you're not aware of, it was only reported to the Kailahun police, would I be safe to say the strategy was not effective because the boy who was allegedly beaten to death was the incident took place during the campaign on the campaign day of the independent candidates, and your guys were supposed to be there manning the campaign back and front with your presence.
It's good it said the boy was alleged beaten during the campaign. That's an allegation anyway. But as I said, I wouldn't mind repeating the same thing, that as far as that incident is concerned, yeah, it came to us as an intelligence that a corpse was in a certain booth. Yes, and I assigned a team to that area, protected the cost until it was removed.
All right, LEC. What about the arrest of the independent candidate?
The arrest of the independent candidate, I'm not aware of that. No. And let me be definite about it. Throughout this campaign process, no aspirant has never been arrested throughout this campaign process.
Independent monitors or those who observed the process or went there to investigate after the violence broke out, they've concluded that the people who were arrested and incarcerated are only supporters of the independent candidate. And what they found out, one of the things is that when the independent candidate was campaigning, supporters of the SLPP candidates, well, specifically tagged as Benghazi boys, right from Kailahun, where you are, were sent to those chiefdoms to disrupt the process of campaigning for the independent candidate, and that's led to the violence. Is that something we should go by?
As far as I know, a few arrests were made during the campaign. Yes, a few arrests. Individuals were arrested. So in precise, we got reports from the various sources. Yeah, and as I said, individuals were arrested and detained, and they have been released on bail pending investigation.
LUC, are the people of those chiefdoms safe for Saturday when the elections will be conducted, the parliamentary and the local council elections, when they will be conducted? Are the people safe with this uncertainty in security strategy?
No, there is no uncertainty of security strategy. Everything is certain. As I speak to you, I'm in the election territory. Everything is quiet. Yeah, there is nothing to report on. To say advanced to report on. Yeah. So everything is in place. Yeah, our duty is primarily to protect and serve and to create the peaceful environment, making sure this election will go through peacefully and normally.
Can I just quickly ask you, out of curiosity, what lessons did you learn from the incident that took place in those chiefdoms? And I asked as a result of the fact that you're going back to police the very elections come Saturday. Have you been able to identify the weaknesses of the security sector that led to that, or are you going to go into those elections with the same strategy that you went with during the campaigns?
As I told you earlier, I have not been able to identify any weakness on the part of the security. We are very much robust enough to police this campaign, as well as the election itself, which is going to take place tomorrow. So there's no weakness on our part. We have the adequate...
LUC, a young man was beaten, he was stabbed and killed. You say you're not aware of that incident, yet you say there are no lapses in the security strategy.
No lapses. I don't know why people try to make this issue. Or probably you deliberately fail to understand it. I've told you over and over again, and I'll continue to say the same thing, that as far as incident is concerned, it came to us as an intelligence. And I don't get it.
Even though it came to you as an intelligence, it did happen. If a young man's life was endangered, it means there was no one there to safeguard his right to life. And that is meant to be the role of the police. Yet you say there were no lapses in security.
No, you are definitely wrong. You are not correct. Let's respect the views of others. I respect your view. You should equally respect mine. Please.
LUC, can you assure the people of those chiefdoms that the police in that part of the country will be able to provide adequate security that will lead to a peaceful, free, fair, and credible election?
I can definitely assure them. Let me tell you, perhaps I will take you back to earlier development. You know, stakeholders meetings were held prior during this election process, as we are now in the campaign aspect of it. So stakeholders meetings were held, and the common message is violence for election, you know, to which everybody, stakeholders, signed up for. And I'm convinced with the evidence on the ground, we're going to have a very peaceful election come 27. That is tomorrow, in fact, yes. So I can definitely assure the people of the Great Kingdom, that is Bengia, Bejebongri, yeah, and the other kingdom, I just forgot the name. So that definitely the SLP will be on the ground as usual to make sure that everybody is safe on that day, and you know, security is guaranteed, so everyone should go and vote and you go back home until the results are announced.
I'm tempted to ask you this question, LUC. I mean, it's just too tough for me to resist the urge not to ask you. The elections that will be conducted on Saturday by the National Electoral Commission, and with the Kailahun police charged with the responsibility of manning those elections. Now, the police in those chiefdoms who registered in those chiefdoms to vote, what's the process going to be like for them? How are they being strategized to go into voting and manning the elections?
That's actually perhaps I will have to engage with NEC on that. NEC will have to decide the way forward about it.
Should that not have been part of the security strategy? Because if I'm in those chiefdoms and I register to vote in those chiefdoms, and I also charged with a constitutional mandate to provide to protect the lives of those who will be voting, should that not have been captured? That is to say, if I'm leaving this post where I'm being assigned to protect people, and I'll be leaving that post to go and vote, what happens in my absence? Should that not have been captured? Is this not a way of saying that the strategy has lapses?
What I'm saying, this is not going to be different from the previous election held where police officers registered to vote. I mean, we too equally have the right just like any other individual. But as I told you, it's a next decision, and we still have a day to go. In fact, almost 2 days to go. Yes, that will be discussed with NEC.
All right, thank you very much for speaking with us, LUC. He is the LUC for Kailahun District, and he is Sheku Kamar.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much, LUC Kamar. Marcelo, you've heard from the LUC. It's quite an interesting interview, I would say, because he refused to accept that, you know, there were security lapses that led to the beating and killing of one individual. Obviously, logically, one would think that if that happens, it means the police were not doing their job. But he says the information came to him as an intelligence.
I mean, the earlier conversation we had, just before the call was put to him, I mentioned the role of institutions in securing democracy. Now, if our democracy must thrive, if elections should be a permanent feature of our political processes, the police must strive to regain trust of the people. you know, for the police to say on a campaign day, a youth was killed and it was brought to their notice as an intelligence, it would worry some of us. So, I mean, I leave that to the police to think through it, if that is really the service they are offering to the Sierra Leonean people. So impartiality of those institutions are critical. And next, this notion of importing violence. Many a times the communities want to be in peace, and we found out that in in Ward 192 in Cambia, there's also going to be an election in March, but there's no violence. In fact, the people said that a win for any one of us is APC, is SLPP, is NGC. A win of any one of us is a win for all of us. They said that in fact we are all relations. We are relatives here. And we do not want to see anybody killed. We do not want to see anybody injured in the process. So they have agreed that they will be peaceful, and they said that we will strive to make sure that nobody comes into this ward ahead of the election to cause violence. Many a times you asked the question earlier, why is it that communities are inherently violent? These are the problems. Benghazi youths were imported to cause problems, and one of the things we have recommended from National Elections was to really go back to the police who were not even aware that somebody was killed. But we recommended to them that the issue should be impartially investigated, and irrespective of political affiliation, the culprit should be brought to book. And we are actually not talking about just the youths, but the instigators of the violence, who organized them. Somebody is behind this, who actually organized them to cause problems in that constituency, and specifically that area. And again, back to the independence of institution, and the police is in the limelight here. From our observation, the residence of the SLPP candidates is fully secured. There is police presence. And interestingly, there is no tension in that community. But the other candidates, where tension is at the community of, you know, the independent candidate, there is no police presence at his residence. In fact, the people are running to the bush. Now, the question is impartiality. If police is providing security for candidates, it should be across the board. That's what a level playing field means in election. And once that is done, it's minimized, it's drastically minimized the potential of tension. You find out that when elections are conducted, that's why we say it should be conducted by the rules, just like football. You do not play 15:11 players. No. Just like football, it has rules. Competitions are inherently conflictual. So you have rules to guide those competitions. And those managing the rules must manage it in accordance with the law. What we call in elections the legal framework. What does the law say? And how the law is applied. If we do not do it that way, just as the officer says now elections have become the common future is violence. No, I refuse to accept that. Because we have failed to do the right things, then violence have become a pattern of our elections, and we are worried about that because nobody deserves to die for a politician.
Right. Just quickly before taking a few messages, Marcella, I've witnessed elections, perhaps outside Africa, and what happens is the candidate must be able to deliver a win, not the party. The party can only contribute maybe about 20% to the victory of that candidate. It comes back to how the political parties in Sierra Leone award symbols to candidates, because that is where this problem is stemming from. The independent candidate is said to be the most popular candidate within the SLPP, but he was denied the symbol, and the symbol was given to another candidate. And so he decided to go independent and see that I mean, let me bring my political view and aspirations on a different platform. And that did not situate favorably within the SLPP. So supporters feel like, oh, the votes that should go to the SLPP candidate would definitely cause some problems for them winning that election. And so there is violence. So how do we get political parties to be able to structure themselves and ensure that if it's the constituency you spoke about earlier, should be able to award symbols to members within the constituency so they know themselves, they understand better the people who can deliver. How do we get political parties to be able to do that?
You see, political parties do not voluntarily take proper decisions in electoral processes. Political parties have the tendency to divert decisions as long as they think it's favorable. What would help them to take the right decision is the law. And that is why I started that internal party democracy has serious flaws. And if that is the case, the Political Parties Registration Act needs to be strengthened to give it the mandate to regulate political parties as it is. So, for example, I remember in Nigeria in 2019, in Abuja, the constituency in Abuja, the ruling party did not have a parliamentary candidate. There was no candidate for the Senate. And I inquired, why is it that they are without, said the party candidates did not go through the internal processes as stipulated by the law. So his candidature was cancelled. Now, if the law is there, it would regulate the parties. It would force them to go according to the law. And again, community dynamics. Democracy is about choice. What the people feel they want. So one of the things that the communities came up with, they said, oh, the candidates, the SLPP candidates, that's where the tension started. The SLPP candidates cannot speak none of the two languages in this community. And so how can this person represent us? These were the questions they were asking. Others say, oh, she's a northerner, and we don't want a northerner to represent us. So there were critical issues these people were putting forward. And so discussions around that, what were the avenues for redress? And then a dissenting factions sprang up. Now, efforts are being made to bring that dissenting view down, and it's leading to tension.
Right. Let's
take some messages.
Yes, please. Eddie Grant is saying elections shouldn't be a do-or-die battle. Joseph Coker is saying the country where people kill and go free because of high-profile connection. Desmond Penn is saying, good morning. My brother said loud again. People lack what it takes to know that there is no devil connected to our problems as Sierra Leoneans. The time and energy wasted yesterday by them could have been used to educate them about their activities, which is polluting the water and leading to fish not being able to. Okay. Why always life or lives lost in our elections? Ibrahim Kuruma is asking. Eddie Grant is saying, why is the LUC not picking calls? Okay, no, yeah, we've spoken to him, Eddie, and the words are too strong for me to go through. I would see if I would find replacement for them as I go through your messages, especially the ones I'm referring to the LUC. And the grant is saying, a little boy beating, is he up to the age of voting? I'm still pondering how such happened. Mr. Kadu Azaki saying, another death in by-election campaign in Kailahun district. So sad when the current administration are using young people to perpetrate violence that has resulted to the death of a young. The defaulters must face justice for such an irresponsible act. May his faithful departed soul rest in peace. We are all Sierra Leoneans and no one deserves to die just because of elections. Amansa Kuruma is saying, come on, LUC, seriously? Somebody lost his life and you are here talking about it's a common thing? Ibrahim Kuruma is asking. Sierra Leonean authority didn't value any citizen's life. Conte J. So many messages, but let's see if we can take at most 3 more. Our brothers and sisters really have to avoid those politicians. Even the police are now politicians, Philip L. Safa is saying. Conte J is saying, LUC is not aware of anything Usman Kabia, Mr. Wise, the LUC will not answer your questions. He's afraid of losing his job. LUC never aware of anything, even those that are there, but it's impossible for them to see what's happened. I mean, let me just resist the urge of going through all these messages.
Right. You know, most of them were for the LUC.
Yes.
He has made his point clear that, you know, he wasn't aware of the death of an individual.
And there's a message here from Marcella, from Edward Amara. It says, Madam Samba, don't just blame the police. Maybe the killing took place off the site of the police. If that is true, then the LUC is correct. We hold you at highest esteem, but these days, you seem to be one-sided in your submission in most national issues. I mean, I read that deliberately because, I mean,
well,
the other day it was me.
To Alphonsus,
yes, Alphonsus Bani.
Because
this is the same story.
Yes, the young man wasn't killed during the campaign.
Yeah.
But he was bitten and he was stabbed right there, according to their investigations.
Yeah.
So obviously that begs the question as to where the police were when these things were happening. Where was the police when this man was being bitten? You know, because that was the campaign area. Anyway.
Marcella, let's allow you to respond.
It's so interesting how people mixed issues and the perception of Sierra Leoneans. The police is an independent institution. So where is the one-sided coming in? Police is not attached to any regime or party. Yeah. The police is not there for any political party. The police is an independent institution. So until people understand that institutions of the state are independent entities, they are not associated with any political party or any political ideology. They are state institutions. They are ours. They are accountability institutions. That's why whenever accountability institutions fail to perform their duty, we call them to task. So when I call independent institution to task, don't say you're one-sided. Yes, I am on the side of justice. That is very clear. I am on the side of good governance. When things go wrong and it's bad governance, it's injustice, I call them out. So I don't understand this thing about one-sided. Now, it's not about blaming the police. It's about police taking up its responsibility. Quite honestly, after a couple of days to this incident, the police should have given a much more stronger and clear interview on the issue. This is not about blaming them. These actions continue to happen because the institutions that are responsible to take charge of this situation fail to take their responsibility. And so next time it would happen again. You hear the police officer saying, the LUC saying it is common. No, it should not be a common practice. People should not die in elections, and there's nothing one-sided about that. It's just clear that people should not die because we are doing an elections.
All right. With that, I think this is how we will round up the conversation. Thank you for speaking to us. She's Marcella Samba, the Executive Director for the National Elections Watch.